He used everything I taught him to compete against me, just like I did to my mentor. Posted in r/am ithasshole. I, 48M, have been a pastry chef for 27 years. I've owned my own bakery for the last 23. It's not a chain, not a franchise, just a small artisan shop in a mid-sized city where I've built my reputation one croissant, one wedding cake, one satisfied customer at a time. My specialty is French-style pastries with a modern twist. I'm known for my Couenne, my Paris Brest, and especially my signature creation, a lavender honey millefeuille that took me 3 years to perfect. This morning, I arrived at my shop at 4:30 a.m. like I always do. The streets were still dark, the air had that cold bite that's perfect for working with butter. I parked in my usual spot, grabbed my bag, and looked up. Across the street, directly across, maybe 50 meters away, there were balloons. Streamers. A massive banner that read, "Grand Opening." And beneath it, a bakery. Not just any bakery. A pastry shop with floor-to-ceiling windows, elegant white and gold signage, and a display case that, even from across the street, I could tell was arranged exactly the way I taught. The way I've arranged my displays for 2 decades. I stood there, frozen, my breath fogging in the cold air. And then I saw him through the window. My former apprentice. He was adjusting a tray of what looked like, I squinted, my stomach dropping, Couenne. My Couenne. The ones with the specific butterfold technique I developed over 15 years. The ones I taught him to make during his 2nd year with me. For a moment, I couldn't move. Couldn't think. The world narrowed to just that window, that display, that familiar silhouette moving confidently through what was clearly his shop now. Then the rage hit. Update 1, the apprenticeship and the betrayal. I need to give you some background, because I know how this might sound. Oh, another jealous business owner upset about competition. But this is different. This is personal. My apprentice came to me 4 years ago. He was 24, fresh out of culinary school, with more enthusiasm than skill but a genuine passion for pastry that I recognized immediately. It reminded me of myself at that age, that hunger to learn, to create, to master something difficult and beautiful. He begged me for a position. I didn't have one. My team was full, my budget was tight, and I'd stopped taking apprentices years before because it was too much work for too little return. Most young people these days want shortcuts. They want Instagram fame without the 4 a.m. wake-ups, without the burned fingers and the failed batches and the years of practice. But something about him was different. He showed up at my back door every morning for 2 weeks, just to watch through the window while I worked. He'd leave notes with questions about technique. He once brought me a croissant he'd made at home. It was terrible, honestly, the lamination was all wrong, but he'd included a detailed breakdown of what he thought he'd done incorrectly and what he wanted to try differently. So I took him on. For 3 years, I taught him everything. And I mean everything. The technical skills, tempering chocolate, making pot feuilleté from scratch, the exact humidity levels for different doughs, how to read butter by feel rather than temperature. The business knowledge, supplier relationships I'd cultivated for decades, the wholesale contacts who gave me the best prices, the seasonal strategies that kept my shop profitable through slow months. The intangibles, how to talk to wedding clients, how to handle complaints, how to build relationships with local restaurants that might feature your desserts. I introduced him to the food community in our city. Brought him to industry events. Let him stand beside me at competitions. When other chefs asked about him, I said, "This one's special. He's going to do great things." I treated him like family. My wife and I had him over for dinner. I helped him when he was struggling with rent. I gave him bonuses I couldn't really afford because I believed in him. And his progress was remarkable. By the end of year 2, he could execute most of my signature recipes with precision. By year 3, he was experimenting, creating variations, developing his own style, always building on the foundation I'd given him. Then, 8 months ago, he came to me with tears in his eyes. "I have to leave," he said. "My mother is sick. She's in another city, and she needs me. I'm so sorry. I don't want to go, but family comes first." What could I say? I hugged him, told him I understood, gave him a glowing reference letter and a severance package he hadn't earned but that I thought he deserved. We had a farewell dinner. I told him my door would always be open if he ever came back. He didn't come back to work for me. He came back to compete against me. Update 2, the lawyer's answer and my wife's question. My first instinct was legal action. I spent the entire morning in a fog, barely functional, burning a batch of croissants for the first time in years because I couldn't focus. By lunch, I'd made 3 phone calls, one to my accountant, one to a business attorney, and one to a friend who'd dealt with a similar situation years ago. The lawyer's answer crushed me. Did you have him sign a non-compete agreement?
No.
I never thought I needed one. He was practically family. Are your recipes documented and trademarked? They're in my head. Some notes. Nothing formal. Recipes can't be patented anyway, only the specific written expression, not the technique or ingredient list. Did he steal physical property? Client lists? Financial records?
No.
He just remembered everything I taught him. Then I'm sorry, my lawyer said, but he hasn't done anything illegal. Unethical, maybe. Personally hurtful, certainly. But not actionable. This happens in the restaurant industry more than you'd think. I hung up feeling gutted. Used. Violated in a way I couldn't explain. All those hours of teaching, all that trust, and legally it meant nothing. He could take everything I'd given him and use it against me, and there wasn't a thing I could do about it. That night, I came home late. My wife was waiting up, which she rarely does anymore. We've been married 22 years, and she knows I need quiet after difficult days. But she could tell something was wrong. I told her everything. She listened. She held my hand. And then she said something that hit me like a punch to the chest. Didn't you do the same thing to your mentor? I pulled my hand away. That was different. Was it? I didn't open across the street from him. I didn't lie about leaving. I was upfront about. You opened 45 minutes away. You used his recipes, his techniques. You took what he taught you and built your own business. I improved on them. I made them my own. And your apprentice hasn't? After 8 months of work, after 3 years of learning, you think his shop is just a carbon copy. I didn't answer. Couldn't answer. She went to bed, and I stayed up until 3 a.m., staring at nothing, feeling something shift inside me that I didn't want to acknowledge. Update 3. The past I don't talk about. I wanted to hate him. It would be so much easier if I could just hate him. If I could look at my apprentice and see a villain, a calculating thief who planned this all along, who pretended to care about me while secretly scheming to steal my livelihood. That narrative would be clean. Righteous. It would let me be the hero. But my wife's question haunted me. I kept telling myself my situation was different. But the more I thought about it, 25 years ago, I was him. My mentor was a man who trained in Paris, worked at a Michelin-starred restaurant, and then opened a small patisserie in the suburbs because he wanted a quieter life. He was brilliant, demanding, sometimes harsh, but brilliant. He taught me everything I know about the fundamentals of French pastry. The mother recipes, he called them. The techniques from which all other techniques are born. I worked for him for 4 years. Learned at his elbow. Absorbed his philosophy, his precision, his secrets. And then I left. I told myself I had good reasons. He was difficult to work with. He didn't pay well. He didn't appreciate my innovations or my ideas for modernizing his approach. I was talented, ambitious, capable of more than being someone else's assistant forever. So I opened my own shop. 45 minutes away, yes, but in a larger market. A growing area. I took everything he'd taught me and built something that, within 5 years, was more successful than his bakery had ever been. He never spoke to me again. Not once. When we crossed paths at industry events, he would look through me like I wasn't there. When mutual acquaintances tried to broker peace, he refused. When he retired 6 years ago, he sold his shop to a stranger rather than offer it to me. I told myself he was petty, bitter, unable to accept that his student had surpassed him. I keep wondering what my old mentor thought when he saw my shop open. Did he feel this same rage? This same confusion? Did he stand in the early morning darkness, looking at my success, wondering where he went wrong? Did he blame himself for teaching me too much, for trusting me too freely, for loving me like a son? God. Update 4. Watching him work. I've spent the past week doing something I'm not proud of. Every morning, after I open my shop and get my team started on the day's production, I find excuses to step outside. Adjust the sandwich board. Check the window display. Take out trash. Really, I'm watching him. His shop is busy. Not overwhelmingly so. He's new, still building reputation, but there's a steady stream of customers. I watch them walk out with white boxes, with coffee cups, with satisfied expressions. Some of them glance at my shop across the street. A few even come over afterward, comparing, tasting both. I tell myself I'm gathering intelligence. Studying the competition. That's just good business. But mostly I'm trying to understand. Through his windows, I can see him working. He moves differently than when he was under my roof. More confidently, more expansively. He's added things to the menu I don't recognize. Pastries that weren't part of my repertoire. Innovations. Improvements. 2 days ago, a customer came into my shop and ordered a lavender honey millefeuille. My signature. The one I perfected over 3 years of experimentation. I had the one across the street, she said, but I wanted to compare. My friend says yours is the original. I made her the best millefeuille I've ever made. Put extra care into every layer, every fold, every drizzle of lavender honey. She took one bite, closed her eyes, and smiled. This is better, she said. I can taste the difference. I should have felt vindicated, triumphant. Instead, I felt empty. Because what was I proving? That I could still beat a 28-year-old who's been on his own for 8 months? That the master is still better than the student? What happens in 5 years? 10. When he's had time to refine, to grow, to develop. When he's accumulated his own decades of experience. What happens when he becomes what I became? Update 5. The conversation I didn't expect. Yesterday, he came to see me. It was after closing. I was alone, doing inventory, the way I always do on Thursday nights. I heard the back door open and tensed, thinking it was my wife coming to bring me dinner. It was him. He looked tired. Thinner than I remembered. There were flour streaks on his apron that told me he'd come straight from his own kitchen. "Can we talk?" he asked. Every part of me wanted to say no. To throw him out. To rage at him for his betrayal, his lies, his calculated theft of everything I'd built. Instead, I said, "Okay." We sat at my prep table, the same table where I'd taught him to temper chocolate, where we'd had countless conversations about technique and dreams and the future. "I know you're angry," he said. "I know you feel like I lied to you. And maybe I did. About my mother. Maybe. She was sick. Is sick. But she lives here now. She moved when I did, when I came back." He paused. "I didn't move away to take care of her. I moved away because I needed space. To figure out what I wanted. To figure out if I was brave enough to do what I knew I had to do. Which was open my own shop. Use what I'd learned. Build something that was mine. Across the street from me." He looked at me then, and I saw something I didn't expect. Not defiance, not malice, but genuine confusion. This was the only location I could afford. The landlord gave me a deal because the space had been empty for 2 years. I didn't choose it to hurt you. I chose it because it was the only way I could make the numbers work. And the recipes, the techniques, the suppliers. What was I supposed to do? Pretend I didn't know them? Deliberately make worse pastries so I wouldn't compete with you? The question hung between us. I didn't have an answer. "You taught me everything," he said, quieter now. "And I'm grateful. I am. But you taught me so well that the only thing left to do was leave. I couldn't grow any more under your roof. I couldn't become what I needed to become while still being your apprentice. So you left. So I left. And I lied about why because I was scared. Because I didn't know how to tell you that the greatest gift you gave me was the ability to not need you anymore. Maybe I didn't teach him to betray me. Maybe I taught him to survive. The thought arrived unbidden, and I couldn't push it away. He left after that. We didn't resolve anything. Didn't shake hands or hug or make promises about how things would be between us. He just stood up, said, "I'm sorry you're hurt," and walked out the door. I sat there for a long time after, thinking about masters and apprentices, about mentors and students, about the strange cycle of teaching someone everything you know, knowing that the end result, if you do it right, is that they won't need you anymore. Is that betrayal? Or is it just success? The question I can't answer. I've been turning this over in my head for days now, and I'm no closer to resolution. I don't know if I'm the victim or the villain. Maybe I'm both. My wife thinks I should let it go. "You have loyal customers," she says. "You have decades of reputation. One young competitor isn't going to destroy what you've built. And maybe this is just karma. Karma. For what I did 25 years ago to a man who taught me everything and got nothing in return except my success as a competitor. Part of me wants to fight. To compete harder. To prove that the original is still better than the copy, that experience and mastery can't be replicated by youth and ambition alone. I could modernize my shop. Expand my menu. Increase my marketing. Crush him with the weight of everything I've accumulated. Part of me wants to confront him properly. Not the hesitant conversation we had, but a real reckoning. Make him understand what he's taken from me. Force him to acknowledge the betrayal, even if the law won't. Part of me wants to let him in. To accept that this is how the industry works, that I benefited from the same cycle, that trying to stop it would be hypocritical at best and pointless at worst. Maybe we could even collaborate someday. Two shops, different approaches, shared history. And part of me, the smallest, most shameful part, wants to find my old mentor. Track him down wherever he is now and apologize. Tell him I finally understand. Ask him how he survived feeling what I feel now. I keep coming back to one thought: the industry normalizes this. The tradition of apprenticeship, learning from a master, then going out on your own, is centuries old. It's how skills are passed down. It's how innovation happens. Every chef who ever opened their own restaurant first learned in someone else's kitchen. But knowing that doesn't make the anger go away. Doesn't heal the sense of betrayal. Doesn't answer the question of what I'm supposed to do with this person who was once like a son to me and who now makes a living by selling what I taught him, 50 meters from my door. He's not evil. I see that now. He's not a calculating villain who planned this all along. He's just ambitious. Hungry. Doing exactly what I did at his age. Doing exactly what the industry taught both of us to do. But understanding him doesn't mean I've forgiven him. Understanding my own hypocrisy doesn't mean I know how to move forward. So I'm asking you, Reddit. Am I the asshole for wanting to destroy his business, even though I did the same thing to my own mentor decades ago? Should I fight him? Compete with everything I have, try to drive him out of business before he can establish himself? Should I confront him again? Demand real acknowledgement of what he's done, even if there's nothing illegal about it? Should I let it go? Accept that this is just how things work, that I'm being a hypocrite for being angry, that I need to make peace with the cycle I once benefited from? Should I try to rebuild the relationship? Find some way to coexist, maybe even collaborate, turn a competitor into something more complicated but also more meaningful? Or something else entirely? I genuinely don't know. I've been doing this for 27 years, and I've never felt more lost. The certainty I had a week ago, that he was wrong, that I was right, that justice needed to be served, has crumbled. In its place is just confusion, grief, the uncomfortable recognition that the world isn't as simple as I wanted it to be. Maybe the real answer is that there is no answer. Maybe some situations don't have clean resolutions, only choices with consequences you have to live with. But I'm hoping someone out there has wisdom I don't, has been through something similar, can see something I'm too close to see. I'll read every comment. I promise. TLDR. My apprentice opened a bakery across the street using everything I taught him after lying about why he left. I wanted to sue, but nothing illegal happened. My wife reminded me I did the same thing to my mentor 25 years ago and he never forgave me. Now I don't know if I'm justified in my anger or just a hypocrite. Former apprentice isn't evil, just ambitious, like I was. Don't know whether to compete, confront, forgive, or something else. Asking for genuine advice. Edit. Thank you all for the comments so far. A few clarifications. Yes, I know I should have had him sign a non-compete. I've heard it from my lawyer, my accountant, and about 40 of you. I didn't because I trusted him. Lesson learned. For those asking about my mentor, he passed away 3 years ago. I found out through a mutual acquaintance. We never reconciled. I didn't go to the funeral because I didn't feel I had the right. That's part of why this situation is hitting me so hard. Several people have asked if the apprentice's recipes are actually identical to mine or if he's changed them. Honestly, I don't know. I haven't tried his food. I've been something, angry, scared. I don't know what I'd feel if his version turned out to be better than mine. Or what I'd feel if it was worse. Both possibilities terrify me, and my wife has been incredibly patient through all of this. We've been married 22 years, and she knows me better than I know myself. When she asked me about my mentor, she wasn't trying to hurt me. She was trying to get me to see something I'd been avoiding. I'm lucky to have her, the person who'd met me asking which city I'm in because they want to try both bakeries. I appreciate your enthusiasm, but I'm keeping location details private for obvious reasons. I'll keep updating if there are significant developments. Right now, I'm just sitting with it, trying to figure out who I want to be in this situation. What kind of man I want to be when I look back on this in another 25 years. Thank you for listening. Even the judgmental comments have been helpful, honestly. Sometimes you need people to tell you the uncomfortable truths you've been avoiding. Final thought. Someone in the comments pointed out that the word apprentice comes from the French word meaning to learn. That the entire concept of apprenticeship is built on the assumption that the student will eventually leave and apply what they've learned elsewhere. That this is the whole point, not a betrayal of the system, but its natural outcome. I've been thinking about that. About what it means to teach someone. About what we owe the people who taught us, and what our students owe us in return. My mentor gave me everything. His knowledge, his techniques, his years of accumulated wisdom. And I took it and built something of my own, something that eventually surpassed what he'd created. I told myself that was different because I did it with good intentions. Because I didn't mean to hurt him. Because I believed I was honoring his legacy by carrying it forward. But he didn't see it that way. He saw what I'm seeing now. Someone you loved, someone you invested in, someone you gave your best years to, walking away and using everything you gave them to compete against you. Maybe the only difference between us is time. Maybe in 25 years, my apprentice will be standing where I am now, watching his own student open a shop across the street, feeling this same impossible mixture of rage and recognition. And maybe that's not a tragedy. Maybe that's just how it works. How it's always worked. The torch passes, even when we don't want to let go of it. The student becomes the master, and the cycle begins again. I still don't know what to do. But I think I understand something I didn't understand a week ago. I understand why my mentor never spoke to me again. And I understand why that silence wasn't just anger, it was grief. The grief of watching someone you shaped become someone who no longer needs you. The grief of realizing that your greatest success as a teacher is also your greatest loss. I'm not ready to forgive my apprentice. I'm not ready to compete with him like nothing happened. I'm not ready to do much of anything except sit in this uncomfortable space and feel what I feel. But maybe that's enough for now. Maybe the first step isn't action, it's understanding. Understanding that the person across the street isn't my enemy. He's my legacy. Whether I want him to be or not. I don't have a neat ending for you, Reddit. I don't have a resolution or a victory or even a clear next step. All I have is this: a week ago, I knew exactly who the villain was. Today, I'm not sure there is one. And somehow, that's worse and better at the same time. Upvote if you've read this far. I know it's long. I know it's complicated. But I needed to get it out somewhere, and this seemed like the place. I'll update when there's something to update. If you have advice, I'm listening. If you've been through something similar, I especially want to hear from you. Thank you. Here's what I learned from watching my apprentice succeed across the street. Sometimes the person you're angriest at is just a younger version of yourself. For a week, I searched for a villain. I wanted someone to blame, someone to fight, someone whose defeat would make everything feel right again. I consulted lawyers. I fantasized about crushing his business. I told myself this was different, that what I did to my mentor 25 years ago wasn't the same thing at all. My wife asked one question, and the whole narrative collapsed. I did this. Not to my apprentice, but to someone who taught me everything, who trusted me like family, who watched me walk away and use his life's work to build my own success. My mentor died 3 years ago. We never spoke again after I left. I didn't go to his funeral because I didn't feel I had the right. Now I understand why he never forgave me. It wasn't pettiness. It wasn't jealousy. It was this impossible mixture of rage and recognition, the grief of watching someone you shaped become someone who no longer needs you. My apprentice isn't a villain. He's ambitious, hungry, talented. He's doing exactly what I did at his age, exactly what this industry has normalized for centuries. The word apprentice literally means to learn. The whole point is that they leave. The whole point is that they take what you gave them and build something of their own. But knowing that doesn't make it hurt less. Maybe I didn't teach him to betray me. Maybe I taught him to survive. Maybe the greatest gift a master can give is the ability to be left behind. I keep thinking about my mentor in his final years. Did he ever drive past my shop? Did he see my success and feel what I feel now? Did he understand, eventually, that I wasn't trying to hurt him, that I was just doing what he'd trained me to do? I'll never know. That's the part that haunts me. The conversation we never had. The apology I never made. The reconciliation that died with him. Someone in the comments said the student becomes the master, and the cycle begins again. Maybe that's not a tragedy. Maybe that's just how knowledge survives, passed from hand to hand, sometimes roughly, sometimes with pain, but always forward. I'm not ready to forgive my apprentice. I'm not ready to compete like nothing happened. I'm not ready to do anything except sit in this uncomfortable space and feel what I feel. But I understand something I didn't understand a week ago. The person across the street isn't my enemy. He's my legacy. Whether I want him to be or not. A week ago, I knew exactly who the villain was. Today, I'm not sure there is one. And somehow, that's worse and better at the same time. I don't have a resolution. I don't have a victory. All I have is a question I can't answer and a cycle I can't break. Maybe that's enough. Maybe understanding is the first step, even when you don't know where it leads. My mentor never got my apology. Maybe the only thing I can do now is not become him. Not let this silence stretch into decades. Not die with someone out there who wonders if I ever understood. I'm not there yet. But I'm thinking about it. That has to count for something. My parents gave my apartment keys to my sister while I was photographing bears in Alaska. I came home to find she'd turned my home into her real estate staging warehouse. I don't even know where to start with this. I'm writing this from a hotel room because I literally cannot stay in my own apartment right now. My hands are still cracked from 6 weeks in sub-zero temperatures, and I'm running on maybe 4 hours of sleep in the last 48 hours. But I need to get this out because I'm starting to think I'm the crazy one here. I'm 29M, and I work as a wildlife photographer. Before anyone asks, yes, it's a real job. I work on contract with conservation organizations, environmental nonprofits, and occasionally magazines. I document endangered species, habitat destruction, and wildlife behavior. My photos have been used in campaigns that have actually influenced policy. I've had work featured in National Geographic. This isn't a hobby. But to my parents, 55M, 53F, I just take pictures of animals. My sister, Claire, 27F, is a real estate agent. She's been doing it for about 4 years now. She makes good money, or at least she talks about making good money. She drives a leased Mercedes, wears expensive clothes, and never misses an opportunity to mention her latest sale. To my parents, she's the success story. She has a real career with real money. I've heard some version of, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" my entire adult life. 6 weeks ago, I left for an assignment in Alaska. A conservation group hired me to document brown bear activity in a remote area they're trying to get protected status for. This was a significant contract, both in terms of money and in terms of impact. The photos from this expedition could help establish a new wildlife preserve. The work was brutal. I spent weeks in temperatures that dropped to -20. I lived out of a tent. I got frostbite on 2 fingers that's still healing. I watched a mother bear protect her cubs from a male, and I got shots that will probably be the best of my career. I came home yesterday. When I walked into my apartment, I thought I'd entered the wrong unit. My living room, which doubles as my workspace, was filled with furniture. Couches, end tables, decorative pillows, fake plants, framed generic art of the kind you see in hotel lobbies. And standing in the middle of it all was my sister. "Oh," she said, like I just interrupted her lunch. "You're back early." I wasn't back early. I was back exactly when I said I'd be back. I asked her what was happening. She explained, casually, like this was completely normal, that Mom and Dad had given her my spare keys. Since I was gone for so long, and my apartment was just sitting empty, they decided she could use it for her work. Apparently, Claire has been using my apartment to stage furniture for her real estate listings. She brings stuff in, photographs it, sometimes brings clients through to show them what the space could look like. My apartment. My home. I asked where my stuff was. She waved vaguely toward the hallway. "Most of it's in the storage unit downstairs." "Don't worry, I was careful." "The storage unit. In the basement of my building. The one that floods every spring." I went to check on my darkroom. For those who don't know, I still do a lot of work with film. It's part of what makes my wildlife photography distinctive. I have a darkroom set up in my second bedroom. It's not just equipment, it's years of work. Specialized enlargers, chemical baths, temperature-controlled storage for negatives, prints in various stages of development. Everything was gone. Claire had moved it all to storage, because she needed the space for overflow inventory. I stood there, in what used to be my darkroom, now filled with bathroom vanities and light fixtures, and I felt something crack inside me. I called my parents. My mother answered. Before I could even explain what happened, she cut me off. "Oh, honey, don't be dramatic. Claire needed space to stage properties, and you weren't using the apartment. Empty apartments are wasteful." I told her this was my home. My permanent residence. The place where I live and work. "You just play with cameras in the woods," she said. "Claire is making real money. She's building a career. We're just trying to help her succeed since you clearly don't need the support." My father got on the phone. He told me I was being selfish. That family helps family. That Claire's work was actually contributing something while I was off playing nature photographer. I hung up. Claire refused to leave last night. She said she has stuff she can't move on short notice, and that I was overreacting. She slept in my bedroom, while I spent the night on a hotel couch because even the floor of my living room is covered in staging furniture. I don't know what to do. My parents are siding completely with her. They think I should be grateful that someone put my apartment to good use while I was gone. I'm exhausted. I'm cold. My fingers still hurt. And I don't have a home to go back to. Is this as insane as it feels? Am I overreacting? Update 1. 2 weeks later. I need to update everyone because the situation has escalated beyond anything I imagined. First, thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. The overwhelming consensus was that I needed to document everything and consult a lawyer immediately. I did both. I hired an attorney who specializes in tenant rights. She reviewed my situation and confirmed what many of you suspected. What my parents and sister did was illegal. They had no right to give away my keys, and Claire has no legal standing to occupy my apartment. My attorney sent a formal notice to Claire demanding she vacate within 7 days. Claire's response? She laughed. She told me, through text, which my lawyer was thrilled about, that I was making a huge deal out of nothing and that she'd leave when she was ready. She also informed me that she'd been showing my apartment to real estate clients as a model unit to demonstrate staging potential. Let me repeat that. My sister has been bringing strangers into my home and presenting it as a demonstration of her staging services. I found this out because I stopped by to check on things and found Claire in my living room with a young couple, gesturing at the furniture arrangements and talking about how proper staging can add 10% to your asking price. She introduced me as her landlord when I walked in. I asked her to leave. She told me I was embarrassing her in front of clients, and that I needed to calm down and wait until after the showing. I did not calm down. The couple left quickly. Claire screamed at me for ruining a potential lead. My parents called within the hour to tell me I was sabotaging Claire's career, and that I needed to support the family. But here's the worst part. The thing that made me physically sick. When I finally got access to the storage unit, I found that Claire hadn't just moved my darkroom equipment. She'd thrown away the stuff that looked like garbage. That stuff included 37 prints that were in various stages of completion. 15 of those prints were commissioned work. I had been hired by a wildlife conservation fund to produce a series of limited edition prints for a fundraising auction. The prints were of endangered species I'd photographed over the past 2 years. Each one was hand-processed, signed, and numbered. They'd already been sold to collectors. I just needed to complete the development process. The total value of those commissioned prints? Approximately $15,000. Claire threw them away because they were just animal pictures and looked like regular photos, and she didn't think they were worth keeping. She threw away $15,000 worth of my work because she didn't understand what it was. When I told her what she'd done, she said, and I quote, "Well, maybe if your work was actually valuable, it would be more obvious." I have never wanted to scream at another human being more than I did in that moment. My lawyer is now pursuing this as a property damage claim in addition to the unlawful occupation. Claire has been formally served with eviction papers. She's required to vacate within 30 days or face forcible removal. Her response to being served? She called our parents, who then called me to tell me I was tearing the family apart and choosing money over blood. I told them that Claire chose to throw away my livelihood because she didn't respect it. My mother's response, "It's not like it was a real job anyway." I've started documenting everything. Every text. Every voicemail. Every time Claire brings someone to tour my apartment. My lawyer says we have a strong case. But honestly, the legal stuff almost doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that my family looked at my life's work and saw garbage. They looked at my career and saw nothing. They looked at my home and saw empty space for Claire to fill. I'm staying with a friend now. My apartment is still full of staging furniture. Claire is still there. But not for long. Update 2. 6 weeks later. Things have moved quickly. Claire was formally evicted 3 weeks ago. She didn't leave voluntarily. She had to be escorted out by law enforcement. She'd apparently told our parents that I wouldn't really go through with it, and that I was just throwing a tantrum. The look on her face when the sheriff's deputies arrived to enforce the order was something I'll remember for a long time. She was given 2 hours to remove her property. Anything left behind would be considered abandoned. She left a lot behind. My attorney and I documented everything. The damage to my apartment. The cost of cleaning. The items that were destroyed or missing. The commercial use of residential property. That last point turned out to be significant. When I told my attorney about Claire using my apartment for client showings, she asked me to get as much documentation as possible. I managed to find several social media posts where Claire had tagged my apartment's location while showing it to clients. She'd even posted a video tour describing it as her mobile staging studio. My attorney forwarded this information to the State Real Estate Board. It turns out that using a residential apartment for commercial staging purposes without proper permits and owner consent is a serious violation. Claire had been operating what amounted to an unlicensed commercial staging business out of my home. The Real Estate Board opened an investigation. Claire's broker, the agency she works for, was notified. They were not happy. Using a family member's apartment without permission for commercial purposes exposed them to liability. They conducted their own internal review. Last week, Claire was dropped by her brokerage. 2 days ago, the Real Estate Board issued a ruling. Claire's license has been temporarily suspended pending completion of an ethics course and a probationary period. She cannot practice real estate in our state for at least 6 months. The career my parents were so proud of? The real job with real money. It's in shambles. I wish I could say I felt satisfied. I don't. I feel tired. I feel sad. And mostly, I feel like I lost something that can't be recovered. My parents have not spoken to me since the eviction. The last message I received from my mother said that I had destroyed my sister's future, and that she hoped I was happy living alone forever. I'm not happy. But I'm not sorry either. The civil case for property damage is ongoing. My attorney is confident we'll prevail, but these things take time. The $15,000 in destroyed prints is just the documented loss. There's also equipment damage, cleaning costs, and the emotional distress of having my home violated. But here's what keeps me going. My work matters. While all of this was happening, the conservation organization I photographed bears for in Alaska contacted me. The photos I took, the ones I nearly lost my fingers for, have been instrumental in their campaign. The area I documented is now under formal review for protected status. If approved, it will become a wildlife preserve that protects over 10,000 acres of critical habitat. 10,000 acres. Because I just take pictures of animals. I printed out the article about the preserve proposal. I put it on my refrigerator. Every morning, I look at it and remember why I do this work. My family may never understand. But the bears will have a home. Update 3, 3 months later. The mediation. This is the update I never expected to write. As part of the civil case, the court ordered mediation. Both Claire and I were required to attend, along with our attorneys, to attempt to reach a settlement before going to trial. I dreaded it. I expected Claire to show up with the same dismissive attitude, the same entitled posture, the same fundamental inability to see me as a person rather than an obstacle. I expected her to minimize, deflect, and blame. I was wrong. Claire showed up to mediation looking different. Not physically, though she did look tired, worn in a way I'd never seen before. The difference was in how she carried herself. The confidence that had always bordered on arrogance was gone. She looked small. The mediator was good. Professional. She started by establishing ground rules. No interrupting, no personal attacks, focus on resolution. Then she did something I didn't expect. She made us talk. Really talk. Not about the apartment. Not about the legal issues. She asked us about our relationship. Our history. How we got here. I expected Claire to perform. To put on the charming, confident facade that had always worked on our parents. Instead, she started crying. Not the manipulative tears I'd seen her use before, the ones that came out when she wanted something and wasn't getting it. These were different. These came from somewhere deeper. She talked about growing up in our family. About how our parents had always measured success in dollars. About how she'd chosen real estate because it seemed like the fastest path to the approval they offered. About how she'd spent years building a career she didn't actually care about because at least it made numbers go up in a way our parents could see and praise. Then she looked at me and said something that knocked the wind out of me. I've always been jealous of you. I must have looked shocked, because she laughed, a sad, wet laugh. You have meaning, she said. Your work actually does something. You save animals. You protect places. You make a difference. I sell houses. I help rich people get richer. I stage empty rooms to trick people into paying more than they should. She wiped her eyes. Mom and Dad praised me for making money because they couldn't understand what you were doing. But I understood. I just pretended I didn't because it was easier than admitting that my little brother was doing something that mattered while I was doing something that didn't. The mediator let the silence sit for a moment. Then Claire said something else. When I threw away those prints, I told myself they were just pictures. But they weren't, were they? They were your actual work. Your real work. And I destroyed them because I couldn't stand looking at evidence that you were doing something meaningful while I was arranging throw pillows. She broke down again. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to stay angry. Part of me had earned the right to stay angry. She had violated my home, destroyed my property, and treated my entire career like it was worthless. But another part of me recognized something in what she was saying. Something true. Our parents had pitted us against each other our entire lives. They'd created a hierarchy where money was the only measure of success, and anyone who pursued something else was less than. Claire had climbed that ladder, and I had rejected it. She'd gotten praise, and I'd gotten dismissal. But she'd also been trapped on that ladder, climbing something she didn't believe in, toward approval that would never be enough. I'm not saying that excuses what she did. It doesn't. She made choices. She could have said no to our parents. She could have respected my home. She could have asked me before moving in. But I understand better now why she made those choices. The mediation ended with an agreement. Claire would pay restitution for the destroyed prints and equipment. The amount would be determined by documentation of the commissioned work value. She would also pay for cleaning and repair costs. In exchange, I would drop the claim for additional damages and not pursue the matter further. We signed the agreement. But that wasn't the end. After the attorneys left, Claire asked if she could talk to me. Just us. We went to a coffee shop. Sat across from each other like strangers. She asked me about my work. Really asked. Not the polite, dismissive questions she'd asked before, but genuine curiosity. I told her about Alaska. About the bears. About what it felt like to spend weeks in freezing temperatures waiting for the perfect moment to capture something true. Then I showed her my phone. I had an email from the conservation organization. The protected status review had been approved. The area I photographed was officially becoming a wildlife preserve. 10,000 acres. Permanently protected. Because of the work I did. Claire looked at the photos I'd taken. The mother bear and her cubs. The landscape that would now be preserved forever. She cried. Really cried. Not manipulative tears, not self-pitying tears. Tears of genuine realization. While I was selling houses, she said quietly, you were saving this. I didn't have a response. There wasn't one needed. Update 4. 4 months later, final. It's been 4 months since the mediation. I want to close this chapter with where things stand now. Legally, everything is resolved. Claire paid the agreed restitution. The civil case is closed. Her real estate license suspension has ended, but she's decided not to return to the same brokerage. She's taking time to figure out what she actually wants to do with her career. My apartment is mine again. I've rebuilt my darkroom. The equipment Claire damaged has been replaced. I've resumed work on the print series that was destroyed. It's taken time, but I'm almost caught up on the commissions. The wildlife preserve is now officially established. 10,247 acres of protected habitat. The organization I worked with sent me a framed copy of the proclamation. It hangs in my living room, in the same spot where Claire once displayed a decorative lamp she was going to use for staging. Claire and I have a relationship now. A real one. We meet for coffee once a month. Sometimes lunch. We talk about things we never talked about before. She asks about my work, genuinely, not performatively. She started following conservation news. Last month, she donated to a wildlife fund I support. She's in therapy, working through the things our parents taught her about success and value. It's slow work, but she's doing it. She's also learning that success isn't just about money. That there are other measures of a life well lived. Measures that our parents never taught us about. Speaking of our parents, they still don't get it. When Claire told them about the mediation, about what she'd realized, about wanting to repair our relationship, they were dismissive. They told her she was being dramatic, and that I had manipulated her into feeling guilty. When she showed them the article about the wildlife preserve, the 10,000 acres protected because of my photography, my mother's response was, "That's nice, but how much did they pay you?" My father said, "Maybe now you can get a real job." I used to let that hurt me. I used to let their inability to see my work's value make me question whether it had any. I don't anymore. Some people can only measure worth in dollars. That's their limitation, not mine. My parents will probably never understand that saving 10,000 acres of wilderness matters more than any commission check. They'll probably never understand that work can have meaning beyond monetary compensation. And I'm okay with that now. I've stopped trying to explain myself to people who've already decided I'm not enough. I've stopped seeking validation from those who've made up their minds. I've stopped showing them awards, articles, and impacts in the hope that something will finally click. It won't click. And that's their loss. Claire and I talk about this sometimes. About how we were raised to compete. About how our parents created a hierarchy where only one kind of success mattered. About how we both suffered under that system in different ways. Her by climbing a ladder she didn't believe in, me by being dismissed for refusing to climb. We're building something different now. A relationship based on actually seeing each other. It's not perfect, and it's still new, but it's real. That's what I wanted to share in this final update. Not just the legal resolution, though that matters. Not just the professional outcomes, though those are meaningful too. What I wanted to share is that something unexpected came from this disaster. My sister and I, for the first time in our lives, are actually family. Final reflection. A lot of people asked me to share what I learned from this experience. I've been thinking about how to put it into words. Here's what I learned from losing my home to my own family. You can't make people value what you do. You can only value it yourself. For 3 years before this happened, I kept trying to explain my work to my parents. I kept trying to prove that wildlife photography matters. I showed them articles about conservation impacts. I showed them awards I'd won. I showed them letters from organizations thanking me for work that had influenced policy. Nothing worked. Because they didn't want to understand. They wanted me to be what they understood. The real lesson: stop seeking validation from people who've already decided you're not enough. My sister needed legal consequences before she could see me as a person, not a resource. That's sad, but it's real. Some people won't respect you until there are consequences for disrespecting you. That's not cynicism, that's observation. But here's what I wish I'd known earlier. Some people only respect what they can measure in money. And that's their limitation, not yours. I spent years feeling like the disappointing son because my salary was smaller than my sister's commission checks. I spent years internalizing the message that my work didn't matter because it didn't produce big numbers. But my photos literally helped save 10,000 acres of wilderness. That habitat will exist, protected, long after we're all gone. Bears will raise cubs there. Eagles will nest. Salmon will spawn. Ecosystems will continue their ancient rhythms because someone decided it was worth preserving. Which one actually matters more, my smaller paycheck or that preserved wilderness? I know my answer. My parents will never agree with it. But I've stopped needing them to. If you're in a family that dismisses what you do, whether it's art, or caregiving, or teaching, or any work that doesn't show up as big numbers in a bank account, hear this: the world needs what you do. The fact that your family can't see it doesn't make it less real. And sometimes, protecting your work means protecting it from family. That's not cruel. That's survival. One last thing. My sister and I have a real relationship now. Not because of the lawsuit, because of what came after. When someone actually faces consequences for how they treated you, sometimes they finally have to look at who you really are. Sometimes the consequence isn't the punishment, it's the wake-up call. Sometimes that's when real family begins. My parents still call sometimes. Still ask when I'm going to get a real job. Still praise Claire's income even though she's taking a break to figure out what she actually wants. Still don't understand why I'd choose freezing in Alaska over a desk job with benefits. I let them talk. I keep the calls short. I don't argue anymore. Because I know what I do matters. I have 10,247 acres of proof. And that's enough. TLDR, parents gave my apartment keys to my sister while I was on a photography assignment. She turned it into a staging warehouse and destroyed $15,000 of my commission prints because they were just animal pictures. Legal action resulted in eviction, license suspension, and loss of her job. Court mediation led to unexpected reconciliation when she admitted she was jealous that my work had meaning while hers felt hollow. We're rebuilding our relationship. Parents still don't get it. I helped establish a 10,000-acre wildlife preserve. I'm okay now.